Have you ever wondered about the delicacies that warmed the tongues and filled the stomachs of people who lived in prehistoric times? Well, if you're like the old me, who used to think that they fed on rats, possums, snakes, and scorpions, then you're in for a shocker. Our ancestors loved to have a good time, and though some of the foods were literally gut-wrenching, most of them would cause anyone's mouth to water. We begin with ancient Egypt. The Egyptians loved to throw banquets, which were typically filled with assorted meats, drinks, and cereals that could last a lifetime. Imagine Beyoncé or LeBron James at a red carpet event chowing down on some roasted gazelle and sipping barley beer. That's basically how Egyptian banquets were. They had grand feasts with roasted meats and bread made from emmer wheat. Plus, beer brewed from barley was their drink of choice. However, they were also big on fruits, vegetables, dairy products, and fish. You'd often find them munching on some dates while discussing the pharaoh's latest edicts or drinking milk while resting their limbs from building a ziggurat. Talking about construction, did you know the ancient Egyptians also packed lunch, similar to the way modern construction workers do? But hold on to your seats for this shocker. The lunches were eerily similar: bread and onions with a jug of beer. This makes me wonder if some ancient Egyptian construction workers time-traveled to the modern US. Maybe they helped construct the ziggurat building in Laguna Niguel, California. Who knows? Sounds like a good conspiracy theory, though. What I found weird about their diet was onions. Now, don't get me wrong, onions are great veggies, but chewing them raw, uncooked? No wonder vampires stay away as far as possible. The ancient Egyptians often ate raw onions to harness their natural energy and included them in medicinal remedies. I wonder how they managed to endure each other during a hearty conversation after consuming chunks of onions. Not a challenge I'd be up for. However, this might explain why they use mince. In case you missed it, I talked about it in the previous video. From the arid deserts of ancient Egypt, we move to the Colosseums of ancient Rome. Forget grapes and wine, they loved exotic and weird dishes. For example, spectators often enjoyed posga while watching gladiators slug it out with lions. A posga was a cheap drink made of diluted vinegar. It was sour and not a drink of choice, but it was the cheapest snack available at the time, so the Romans indulged in it. If you don't have what you like what you have. And a little Mad Dog 2020 goes a long way. When they weren't cheering their favorite fighters to glory, the Romans were at home consuming vegetables and starchy roots. They loved some cheese on their meals and would top it off with legumes, honey, and meat. Yep, the Romans loved a healthy diet, which is commendable, but also had a penchant for weird delicacies like stuffed dormice. No, your ears aren't deceiving you. The sons of Romulus hunted dormice, emptied their entrails, and stuffed it with pork and seasoning. Sometimes they would fry the hapless animal whole and then dip it into honey before taking a crunchy bite. I wonder how Gordon Ramsay would handle that challenge. And before you start painting the Romans as a backward lot, know that stuffed dormice is still consumed in some parts of Europe. Is your stomach about to churn? Hold on, because the worst is yet to come. The ancient Romans loved to enjoy salted flamingo tongues at their banquets. And, as if that wasn't bizarre enough, they ate the infamous garum as ketchup. Garum was made out of rotten, stinky fish that had been salted to taste. Of course, the salt helped with its acidic flavor, but did nothing to mitigate the stench from the fish. No wonder some people used to think that the ancient Romans created vomitoriums at banquet halls to puke out food they'd just consumed so they could make way for more food. If the Romans could convince each other to eat rotten fish, then I put nothing past them. Any time traveler here who has tasted flamingo tongues? Or salted rotten fish? Please do us the honor of telling us about it in the comments section. And if you are indeed time traveling, please, for the love of humanity, take back some decent food with you. It'll save us all future unwanted trips to the toilet. The ancient Greeks had a better blend of tasty and healthy foods than their Roman counterparts. They consumed vegetables, fruits, cheese, eggs, olives, fish, and meat. They loved fast food too, and their favorite was gyros, a meal made of wrapped meat and vegetables grilled over an open fire. Gyros is similar to Arab shawarma, and you can find this sizzling hot delicacy in some parts of Europe today. Picture Aristotle grabbing a gyro from a food truck before heading to the theater. Fast food on the go. Some things never change. I was pleasantly surprised to discover the Greeks ate 3 square meals, which included breakfast, lunch, and dinner, similar to what we have today. The breakfast would often feature gruel, made from barley or wheat, or both, which were roasted and milled into flour. The set was completed with bread made from milled barley or wheat. Some families preferred soaking the wheat overnight to soften them, and then boil them into porridge. Of course, sugar was still in its birthing stages, so the Greeks used honey as a sweetener. Families who couldn't afford honey just gulped everything down and smacked their lips to its tangy taste. Lunch often featured spicy vegetable soups. Sometimes the vegetables were seasoned with olive oil, vinegar, and herbs, and then eaten with garum, similar to that stinky Roman food that I spoke about earlier. Supper would see the family sit down to a meal made of radishes, carrots, and turnips. And for desserts, they ate pears, apples, grapes, fig fruits, plums, and chestnuts. An evening meal was incomplete without the usual grape wine to wash out the entrails and aid digestion. Unlike the Romans, the Greeks didn't go overboard with their food choices and often emphasized healthy eating as a way of life. But Persian cuisine was all about bold flavors, spiced lamb, saffron rice, and pomegranate sauces. Can you picture Jamie Oliver handling the heat of a Persian feast? The Persians were the spice masters of the ancient world. The culinary culture of Persia placed high importance on the use of spices, not only for flavor, but also for their medicinal properties. This cultural emphasis drove demand and innovation in the spice trade. One of their specialities was pheasingen, rich and flavorful stew made from ground walnuts and pomegranate molasses. It was typically cooked with poultry, usually duck or chicken. This dish stands out for its sweet and sour flavor profile, which is both unusual and deeply satisfying. Now let's head on over to the ancient Celts. They enjoyed hearty meals of barley bread, cheese, and beer. The Celts, known for their diverse and sometimes wild culinary traditions, had several dishes that might be considered unusual by modern standards. One such dish was cranogman stew. The name comes from the Cranogs, artificial islands in lakes and rivers where some Celtic communities lived. The ingredients for the stew were typically sourced through hunting and foraging, which was a significant part of Celtic life. The stew was cooked in a cauldron over an open fire. The meat would be browned first, then root vegetables, herbs, and water would be added to create a hearty broth. While cranogman stew is a prime example, the Celts also consumed other interesting dishes, such as blood sausages. Oh, yummy. It was made from animal blood, fat, and barley or oats, reflecting their nose-to-tail approach to using animal resources. But did you know that this sausage is still a delicacy in Slavic countries? For example, in Poland, it is called kaszanka and is a popular barbecue sausage. Also, the Celts were known for their use of fermentation, including fermented dairy products and beverages like mead and ale. Imagine Ed Sheeran raising a pint with a loaf of barley bread at a Celtic feast. Ancient pub vibes for sure. Their communal eating habits are akin to today's pub culture. Following in the ancient Greek tradition were the ancient Chinese. They also enjoyed meals made with rice, wheat, and millet. They were big on meat and consumed almost every domesticated animal, from ducks to dogs. Yep, those little fluffy creatures that warm your heart with their antics were a delicacy in ancient China. Yams, soya beans, and broad beans were a staple of Chinese foods, and of course their world-famous noodles deserve a special mention. However, they also had a penchant for bizarre diets and would consume soups made from shark fins, bear paws, sea slugs, and bird nests. Yep, they just happened upon a bird nest, probably removed the debris, and dumped the whole nest into the soup. As for the taste, well, let's just say it was sticky. My research shows certain regions in China still eat bird nest soup called tongci. Would you be willing to eat a bird's nest? Tell me about it in the comments section. Right then, away from Asia, let's check out some superfoods in ancient Mesopotamia. You remember movies like Lord of the Rings or The Witcher, where the characters often walked into large banquets featuring full roasted oxen? Well, I bet those scenes were ripped out of an ancient Mesopotamian text, because those people loved to party, and they did it in style. Aside from full roasted oxen that were a mainstay at their parties, you'll find ducks, chicken, wild boars, geese, and pigeons sizzling over a hot fire. They also consumed lentils, onions, and garlic in large quantities, and topped it all up with jugs of beer. Yep, beer is that old. They loved fruits and occasionally indulged their taste buds. They ate figs and melons, but they sporadically enjoyed grapes and apples, which they imported from other countries. They also ate bread and prepared gruel from barley and wheat. Since they lived by the Tigris and Euphrates, the Mesopotamians often added fish to their diets, though not as frequently and rampantly as meat products. Think Gwyneth Paltrow's goop diet is innovative? Mesopotamians were the OG superfood enthusiasts. The Mesopotamians ate vegetables, but not as religiously as the Aztecs. The Aztecs are famous for inventing the chocolate drink and played a major role in popularizing ayahuasca. But they are rarely known for their strict vegetable diet. They also farmed large acres of maize, beans, and squash, which were prominent in their dietary regimen. The Aztecs would harvest maize, dry it, and then mill it into flour, which they would use to prepare gruel. For protein, they caught a coxswain, a crayfish-like creature that was found in the Lake Texaco. They also harvested the spirulina algae, which to be frank looks nauseating, but is actually rich in protein, copper, and vitamin B. The Aztecs harvested the algae with long sticks coated with tecuitlatl, and then made them into flat cakes, which they dried. The spirulina algae was a common delicacy then. However, I can't help but imagine how the Aztecs decided to eat algae, of all things. Most likely the idea was probably from some crackhead who after a few puffs of dried mushrooms told his pals, "Hey dudes, let's try some spirulina." Luckily for everyone, it worked out fine in the end. The Aztecs had a royal treat: chocolate, but not your sweet cocoa. They drank it mixed with chili peppers, honey, and spices. This was the ancient energy drink reserved for royalty and warriors. Ever wondered if Michael Phelps or Serena Williams could enhance their performance with Aztec chocolate? I mean, come on, anyone who swallows raw eggs would most likely give anything a try, so don't be too surprised. So then, if you think all that foodie stuff sounded weird, then I bet you'll be baffled by the type of bizarre underwear that some men used to wear in ancient times. Click on this video to find out more, and I'll see you there. And until next time, thanks ever so much for watching.